What is up, everybody? Solomon here. Super excited to be down at Hello Future Live, celebrating the Hedera ecosystem. Equally excited to be with the man, the myth, the legend himself, Mr. Max Walker Williams. Max has been in the Hedera community for quite some time. He's a builder, he's a researcher, he's a content creator, background in real estate. Max, talk a little bit about that experience building in the Hedera ecosystem. When did you start? What kind of brought you into the ecosystem?
I thought I was interviewing you. No? Is that not? All right, okay.
Yeah, we can switch it around. We'll just go back and forth.
Okay, fine. So we'll take turns to ask each other a question.
For sure.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Deal? Okay,
Yeah.
fine. So I was basically COVID. COVID meant that I went from working crazy hours a week to working a lot less hours a week, and so I had a lot of free time on my hands. And I've always been a bit of a geek, but I was concentrating on my real estate businesses. But I always had an interest in cryptography, DigiCash and then Bitcoin, and kept an eye on it. And at the time, I didn't really understand what everyone else saw in Bitcoin because I didn't think it was going to be scalable, and I didn't think it was going to be the money of the world that everybody else kind of saw. I didn't see what other people saw. And so I just sort of sat on the sidelines. And then when Hedera Hashgraph came along, I started getting back into cryptography in general and just doing stuff that for my own personal pleasure. I came across Hedera Hashgraph and instantly recognized it as different and scalable and exactly what everyone thought Bitcoin was going to be back in 2007, 2008. And so I invested in the project, bought some HBARs, and I've just been following the project ever since, really. Yeah. How about yourself? What's your background? I have no idea. How did you get into?
So, well, same story as most people, I guess. Late 2016, I actually had to pay a record producer because I recorded an album in Bitcoin. So I was like, "What's Bitcoin?" I thought I was gonna like PayPal him,
Yeah.
And I had a little bit of money loaded up on Coinbase, and I left it there for 6 months, and the money went up because I had too much on there, and I'm like, "Oh, this is interesting." So I thought everything was going to go up.
Yeah, always. Everything always, yeah.
And long story short, experienced, 2017 and 2018, after that horrendous crash, everything else had happened. Kind of similar to you, I was like looking at Bitcoin and other things. I'm like, this, because we've all experienced like sending a Bitcoin or sending some Bitcoin and being nervous for an hour and a half while it doesn't go through. So start looking into other things. Ended up finding Hedera, I think it was like 2019 or 2020, where they used to have you could read an article and get streamed micropayments. It was like one of the first things that was kind of public. And then interviewed Christian Hasker in 2020. Just have found a lot of synergy coming from like the XRP community and then the utility aspects there. And it kind of really hasn't stopped since. I mean, you can see how far the network's come, even since 2019, 2020 as well.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, but that's crypto-centric. How did you get to where you are today in terms of influence and following? How did that start?
I think it came about from wanting to be able to research and know what I was actually getting into in this space, because the 2017, 2018, I was literally just buying anything.
Yeah, like horse betting.
Totally gambling.
Yeah.
And then the research, and then doing videos and actually trying to like do deep dives into it. Started with XRP, like I mentioned, but then diversifying out in 2019. I don't know. It's probably similar to you. Like once you get the bug, it's hard to get rid of the bug. For how much information you're almost like obsessed with, like trying to research and find as much as you can about this space.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah, I mean. In that sense, I mean, you do a ton of research yourself, and I would love to kind of hear the process, because you've done immense breakdowns of a lot of different assets. I know that you do a lot within Hedera, but you do breakdowns with other ecosystems as well. A lot of people don't see what that process looks like, and it's like there's not like a huge amount of gratitude sometimes, because it's like they just see the end result of the product.
Yeah.
I know we were talking about that even yesterday. If you could maybe bring up kind of what that process is.
Well, it's like anything in life. People see a guy or a girl in a Lamborghini, and they see the end result. What they don't see is the years of hard work that went into getting that car, usually. And it's exactly the same with research or anything else that anybody does. They see the end video, but they don't see the days and days and sometimes weeks, literally weeks of research that goes into creating content like yours and mine. And actually, it's interesting because recently on X, previously Twitter, I'm still getting used to the Twitter X thing, still calling it Twitter. I said that I had a bit of a gut feeling about XRP, that something wasn't quite right. I got a lot of flack for that. And then, so that was say on a Monday. And I said, but I'm going to do a deep dive. I'm going to revisit the project and let's have a look, see what's going on. And on Tuesday, people are chasing me for the video. And it's like, no, you don't understand. No, I'm going to need like 3 weeks. And they were going, why? And people really have no context of what goes into creating real quality content. And it's a shame because a lot of the stuff in our industry is the way to get a bigger following usually quicker is just very sugar rush stuff, just promises of crazy price predictions, and it gets clicks and it gets follows and stuff, but it's all nonsense. Well, the majority of it's nonsense.
I couldn't agree more. Even from I know that we focused a lot on, bringing ecosystems together and the cross-chain stuff, as well as some of the unique stuff. And there's so much work that goes on behind the scenes, like coordinating all of these different ecosystems, even like down to like administrative tasks to make sure that we're all lined up. And then you kind of have the one big bang moment where you actually do an event or do a spaces or do an interview or whatever else it is. And it's almost like, what have you done for me lately, right? Because people are always wanting the next thing. I think that's why when you mentioned hype for the sake of hype type content, it's not very difficult to do that. The people that do that type of content, there's a reason that they can push out 2 or 3 videos a day because there's not a lot of thought process behind
that's exactly it. It's mathematically impossible to do the research required to create quality video in the time frame that, and they're pumping out 2-3 videos a day exactly. But unfortunately, they're the ones that get the biggest reward in terms of influence and following and that sort of thing. And that's a real shame in this space. I think that'll change over time. But because it's such a new industry, I do think that people are looking for that sort of sugar rush information. But I do honestly believe that will change over time. But one thing I admire about yourself is that you haven't gone down that path of quick, 3 videos a day kind of content, and yet you've still managed to grow your following, to a large following. How have you done that? I'm asking personally. I want to know how do I grow a following?
I think from the personal standpoint, from the Genfinity standpoint, or maybe a mixture of both?
Well, a mixture of both, because it was you and then Genfinity came later, yeah? So what's that journey, and how have you achieved the success you have without selling out, basically?
I think we've all made mistakes in crypto, 100%. 100%. So I've certainly made some mistakes, but as far as like content and research, literally when I started, I saw that there were other people that I respected that were doing research, and look, I have a computer, I know how to search things, so I started searching things and finding stuff that most people weren't able to find. I kind of had a knack for doing some deep dives, and I remember when I first interviewed Christian Haster in 2020, I found a document saying the SecNav and the DoD were trialing out Hedera for microgrids, and he was like, how did you find that? Because nobody else had even seen that. But I was tagging other people that I respected and just kind of growing naturally, and then backing that with the deep dive content, stuff like that. I think the more interesting story isn't how I grew my own personal account, but it's deciding to shift that and knowing that I need more help, and knowing that it's a strength in numbers thing, which is kind of the origin of the Genfinity aspects. Having a whole team behind us. There's there's 4 people.
4 people stood behind these cameras.
Standing behind the cameras right now.
Yeah.
And it's just a lot of hard work, and it's trying to build out organically because, I think that there is a big gap from the media standpoint in crypto. Mm-hmm. If you know what some of these projects pay for one article and some of the bigger names, it's an acidine amount of money. And it's I think that we can just do it better and actually provide some value, hopefully bring ecosystems together and get people out of their echo chambers.
That's the other thing that really annoys me in this space is, we've all seen BitBoy just sort of fall apart, but it's come to light through that, and I know that some people knew this beforehand, that these influencers that have got massive followings, they're promoting tokens, and it's a paid promotion. They don't tell people it's a paid promotion. I think that's really, really unfair on the public that are buying into these things, on somebody that they trust say so, not knowing that it's a sponsored thing, and the guy actually knows, or the girl knows nothing about what they're promoting. It's just a paid promotion. It's an advertisement.
Well, that's illegal too.
Yeah.
It's literally illegal.
Why is no one being held to account? That's what's you can't blame them for doing it in a sense, because why not? It's quick cash, it's quick money.
Well, it is fun. But it's I don't know. That kind of bothers me from across the board, but especially for new people coming into the space, not knowing where to turn because there's so much total bullshit.
Yeah.
Where you see stuff like that and you see somebody has a lot of followers, so they must know what they're doing, and they post this thing, and you know on the back end that they literally just got paid in the same token that they're telling you to buy, and they're dumping
They're
it.
reading off a script like, what's today's pump? Yeah, it's just absolute nonsense, and nobody's being held to account for it.
I think, I'm kind of curious as far as like, when did you decide, because obviously you started with like research and researching the space, when did you decide to build in this space, like on the back end with like mint condition and...
Yeah, so obviously my following grew. I mean, it's a small one, but it was growing a bit, and a lot of people kept asking. There was two sides to this. People who follow me on YouTube and X and things, they were saying, you should be building in this space because you've built stuff in Web 2 in real life, property, etc. And so why not do something on Hedera? We'd love to see. We like your brand. We'd love to see you do something on Hedera. That was the one end. But then on this, in my real life, I've been very fortunate to make some friends that have gone on to have very successful businesses or are high up in very large corporations. And they saw some of my content, and then they started calling me personally and saying, oh, we see you're into this and you seem to know what you're talking about and you get it. Can you come and explain it to me and some of the girls or me and some of the guys? And so I was doing that just for friends. And then they started suggesting that I consult for these companies, like these large companies. And they were like, okay, so we understand, and it literally is me going into one of the companies that we're very fortunate to be working with. I can't say who yet because we have to go through a whole thing with their PR team, but they turned over $14 billion last year.
Wow.
Billion. And it starts with me going into a boardroom full of people and they're like, it's not a pitch, it's just me saying, this is what Bitcoin is. And then they all have questions like, what's this? How does it mean? How does it work? Going all the way through ETH2 and the pitfalls and the downsides and the possibilities and that they might be able to take advantage of. Getting all the way to Hedera and why for them, a lot of these large companies, they're making so much money that actually in this context, profit isn't their number one priority. It's not even their top 10. It's like brand, message, brand. So they want to protect the brand. That's the key thing. And they do not want people coming into their place of business, their shop, their studio, their car garage, whatever it might be, and super gluing themselves to stuff. And they don't want to be listing things next to a Pepe Frog or whatever else junk you see on OpenSea or wherever. And so it's about this whole conversation. They were like, okay, we now understand that Hedera ticks the boxes. We get it. This is, no question there. ABFT, it's secure, it's environmentally friendly. We get it. Ticks the boxes. But what should we actually be doing? Okay, so we have this car. It's a limited edition. We're only making 60 of them. What should we be doing to digitalize this asset? To create customer engagement that I say to them, it hasn't been possible until now. What does that look like? Is it a picture? Is it a 3D model? How many should we do? Should there be utility involved? What are the pitfalls? And then the same question kept coming up over and over again. And I started doing this consulting as Utopian Lab, a company that I set up to do that, to hold the hand of companies and offer a turnkey solution from literally explaining Bitcoin all the way through to this is what you should be doing, this is the offering, this is what you should be doing, this is what you shouldn't be doing, all the way through to actually creating that content. So actually creating the digital asset that they're going to be selling. But we kept hitting a brick wall, which was, where are we listing these items? We get the tech, we get the thing, we understand. But where's the end outlet? And they would either look with me or look in their own time at the current offerings on Hedera, the marketplace on Hedera. And they're great for what they do, and they're very good at what they do, but they're two completely different worlds, like the corporate enterprise level and then the sort of grassroots level. And one of the biggest concerns for these huge brands and talent and things is being listed next to stuff that they don't see fits in line with their brand. And so we decided that we didn't have a business anymore because we could do this all the way through and then there was nowhere to sell it. So by force, we had to come up with a solution or wait for someone else to create it, and we weren't willing to wait. So, it sounds silly, but even like hash. So you say hash graph, you have to explain to them that isn't anything to do with marijuana.
Yeah.
Because for the rest of the world, hash is weed.
Yep.
Hash pack, they hear weed box. And so it's like genuinely, like, that's a true story. Like they're like, whoa, stop, what was that?
I think sometimes we take it for granted too, because it's just so natural to us.
Yeah, it's hash pack. Marijuana box. So they're like, whoa, what was that? What's that word you're using? And everyone stops and freezes, and you have to explain the whole thing, which is why we came up with mint condition.
Yep.
Because any self-respecting collector who goes to buy something off another collector, I've got a Spider-Man comic edition 1 with a mistake on it. There's only 50 in the world. It's $1 million. First question you're going to ask me is what condition is it in? And the very best answer I can give you is mint condition.
Yep.
It's got the word mint in it, so it's a nod to the technology because, of course, you mint an NFT. And if I ask you in 6 months' time and you're drunk out of your mind, what's the name of it? You'll remember it's mint condition.
Sure.
So it's easy to remember. It's a nod to the technology, but it also references the best condition something can be in. And it's also quite playful because they're digital assets. So unless it's a perishable NFT, of course they're in mint condition. And so that's how we kind of came up with and that's the whole ethos. So starting with the branding and then working all the way backwards to the large brands is the brand, the name, everything is about the next step in this ecosystem, which is sort of becoming bigger, more grown up, more ready for the real world. Web 2, 99% of the people who aren't in crypto, they aren't interested in Hedera or how it works or the technology lying underneath. They just want to buy a Johnny Depp NFT and they don't want to kill the planet when they're doing it.
Yeah. And I think, in that regard as well, you think about the bigger picture. From the advisor aspects and consultancy aspects, have you seen like a shift over time in like knowledge of some of the institutions or organizations that you talk to, or is it still you're going in and you're kind of at the baseline and
every
you have
time
to build it up?
Yeah, baseline.
It's still at the baseline every time.
So I'd say of the circa 25 meetings we've had, from 2 weeks ago to a year ago, 1, maybe 2 people, I've said, has anybody having any experience of crypto? Has anyone done anything in crypto? Maybe 1 or 2 hands have gone up at over 25 meetings.
Like
yeah. I've got.
Somebody told me to buy Doge.
Yeah, my son helped me buy some Doge because he's going to go to the moon. That's it. So tell us about Gemfinity. What is Gemfinity?
We wear a lot of different hats. I think when we initially started, we started actually all the way back in July of 2021, and it took us about a year to figure out, what do we actually want to contribute to this space? And the same discussions always happen. Should we launch a coin? Should we launch an NFT? Yeah. And every time, trying to be as safe as possible, we kept basically saying no. But we do have a lot of connections. So the first thing that we launched was kind of an agnostic, run the gamut research report with a bunch of well-respected kind of researchers across space. We found out within 3 months that most people don't want to read in crypto. So,
or generally.
or in general.
Yeah.
But then it was also, okay, we still have all the contacts, and we've made a lot of connections like with a lot of different ecosystems. So it's like, why don't we start trying to highlight these ecosystems? Whether it be in a unique way, like the Hedera Corner spaces that we ended up, doing with Hashpack, not Weedbox, but Hashpack.
Yeah.
Or the cross-chain stuff, and just trying to leverage the networking connections that we do have as a start, and try to educate kind of the broader community. More recently, so on top of that type of content or interviews or spaces and getting people out of the echo chambers, network awareness has been really important. But more recently, kind of building out from the actual news standpoint and pushing out, consistent articles. It's a slow burn, but trying to build out like search engine optimization and SEO stuff, 6 to 8 months down the line, starting to populate amongst the Cointelegraph or CoinDesk, things like that. Continuing to kind of grow out with different networks and ecosystems and hopefully expand in the right way and just do it through consistency. So our aim is to really kind of I don't want to say upset the apple cart, but provide an alternative solution to something like a CoinDesk or a Cointelegraph, where you've got a lot of news coming out consistently, but then also things like this or things like the spaces and kind of taking, creating those feedback loops of all the content that we facilitate across the board. Because if you look at a CoinDesk or a Cointelegraph, it's like, let's just hire as many bounty hunting people to write articles as we possibly can.
Yeah.
And
it's just a story factory. They just keep pumping
Sure.
out the content stuff. But what they're not attending events. Is that what you're saying? And
they attend events.
Yeah.
But I think it's a little bit different where we actually, I think it comes down to like knowledge and doing some due diligence before you talk to people and actually being able to make those connections based on the knowledge level that, either myself or we work with Darren Moore Jr., who does great research from the macroeconomic standpoint, kind of just being like more of a source of truth out there instead of just pumping content for the sake of pumping content as best as we possibly can.
So, how do you scale that though? Because it takes a lot. You can't be everywhere.
That's true.
And so, how do you scale that? So you've got 3 events really important events on the same week.
Yeah.
You can't attend all 3. So how do you scale that business?
Well, I think to start right now, only handling what we can control right now.
Yeah.
Right. Like, I would even say like over the past couple of months, just divvying out internal workload aspects where if we have short form content on the back end of a Spaces, I've got Sarah from Genfinity to do that for me. If we have article driven content that's either from a Spaces or maybe it's news or breaking news, whatever else it is, I have Valor to help me with that. From everything operational, I have Carola to help me. On the back end with strategy, I've got Sadaf to help me. If there's dev related questions, which we're also like simultaneously building out our own website, I've got Colin there to help me.
It's about having the right team.
It's about having the right team, but it's about building out a team that makes sense as well, because make no mistake about it, like people in this space, like time is money, right? And for having Darren to help us with additional Spaces, or maybe even somebody like Crypto Airy in the future who does a lot of great work, it's a difficult question, but it's literally just putting the work in, and then as we lay those foundations down, figuring out small ways to scale. But I think it's I'm sure the team will laugh, but I have a really hard time giving up control of things. I'm a historic micromanager. But I've gotten way better at that.
Right, okay.
And I've had to, because we're doing so much right now that unless I give up that control, unless I let people help, that's the way that we really, are going to continue to grow. But putting people in the right positions though that care about the quality is going to be massively important. And right now the team that we have does.
Yeah.
But it's making sure that we never just onboard somebody for the sake of onboarding.
It's not about filling the sort of Spaces.
Where they meet their little deliverable and they're like, well, I got my job done.
Yeah. But it's so hard to 10x that. But if anyone can, I'm sure you can.
I agree, 100%.
I tell you something that annoys me. I tell you something that really annoys me in this space is that it's ironical that Web3 was supposed to be, my understanding was that it was supposed to be peer-to-peer transparency. Transparency is king. That's the whole thing, is to be transparent. And I don't do anyone in business in Web2 that I don't know. And everyone knows who everyone is, and everyone knows where the money goes, and everyone sort of, there are contracts and things in place. We enter this Web3 world where it's supposed to be peer-to-peer, cut out the middleman, transparency. But most people don't know who anyone is. And there are people who've set up businesses with other people who've never met.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how do you know you're not working with the Russian mafia? Well, the honest answer is I don't. You could be, your business partner could be the Taliban for all you know, because you don't know who they are. And that leads into this whole thing that I'm so glad that people like yourself and your team are building, because there's someone to hold to account, there's someone behind it, and there's also people don't seem to be giving proportionate weight to the information that they're getting. And what I mean by that is there are people who have huge followings on X that I happen to know, but they aren't doxed. So nobody knows who they are, but I know who they are. And some of them are like 17 years old and still living at home. Wow. There's nothing wrong with that, but they don't have life experience, and they're giving advice as if they do, but they're guessing. And they're doing okay, they're doing well, but they're giving advice on how to build a $10 million portfolio.
Yeah.
They've never built a $10 million portfolio. And it's the only example I can give, it's like going to the gym and picking a personal trainer, but not being able to see what they look like.
Yeah.
For all you know, they're a fat mess.
Yeah.
If they're worse off than you are, why are you taking fitness advice off them?
100%.
No one would do that in life, but people seem to do that with their finances. And it's never made sense to me. I want to see the CV of people. If I'm going to take advice off someone, I want to see their CV. If you're going to tell me how to earn enough passive income to buy a Lamborghini, I want to know that you've got a Lamborghini.
Sure.
I
think we have kind of an interesting story in that regard too. Even from the Genfinity perspective, like I put out like a call to action in 2021, like May or June, seeing who wanted to build and start a project, because I was like, I want to start a project. Had no idea what the project was going to be. Had like 200 people in a Discord. And after about a week, there was like 150 people in the Discord. And after about a week after that, we got down to like 4 or 5, like 5 of us, right? And we're spread out all across the globe. Two members are from Australia, one from the UK, one Boston, one Orange County. Myself, like Pittsburgh. I do agree with you 100% though. Like,
there's nothing wrong with that, by the way.
No.
Because everyone's coming from a different context,
seeing
it's
people,
really good.
seeing people face to face.
But you know who they are, presumably.
Yeah. But our story is a little bit different too, because like we were doing it as like a passion project at first. Yeah. None of us have started any sort of a media company before. I certainly haven't.
No.
So a lot of it was like trial and error as we scale, but we also never sold anything.
Yeah.
So like it allowed us to navigate the waters and continue shifting what we were actually doing to find out what works
Yeah.
and what doesn't work, because at the end of the day, we still haven't sold anything. Like nobody's had to buy anything from us. It's all been open information.
And you're not advising people, presumably, how to build $100 million media empire, because you
No.
haven't done it yet.
No.
I would never tell anyone or sell a course or do anything like that, telling people that I can teach them how to do something I've never done myself.
Yeah.
But people do that all the time, and people are getting, and the damage that this causes, it sets the whole industry back when people get rugged, when people are scammed, when people are given like a pump and dump coin or meme, misinformation, all that sort of stuff. It genuinely, we lose people, good people in the ecosystem, because they took the advice off some clown, they lost a load of money, and they say, I'm done with this technology. And I think that's the real shame.
I agree, and then they don't come back until like 3 years later when everything's skyrocketing again, which is the worst time to come back.
Yeah.
On like a positive note, like what are you kind of most looking forward to? Let's say, and we're almost at the end of 2023, but looking further out, whether it be with Mint Condition or Hedera or the ecosystem as a whole.
So I think as the ecosystem, you touched on utility earlier, and I think utility is so important. And the reason I think utility is so important is because I do think that at some point, I know at some point that everything happens in cycles, and we are going to hit a global recession if we haven't already hit one, maybe even a depression. So we're going to be back, unfortunately, in a 2007, 2008 scenario. When that happens, 99% more, nearly 100% of people, if they're honest, are holding Bitcoin or Dogecoin or any of those. They're a lottery ticket. It's the greater fool theory. They hold those tokens because they believe that at some point in the future, somebody will be willing to pay them more for than what they paid for it. And that's the only reason they hold it. They bought it, they put it in a wallet, they forget about it. They've never used it for anything. But when this recession hits and somebody has to make a choice between buying food and paying their rent or holding onto the Dogecoin, which are they going to choose? They're clearly going to sell the Dogecoin, so which is going to collapse a lot of projects. A lot of projects, I think, are going to get washed away because people will just be selling the pressure. They'll see price drop, more panic selling. It'll become a negative cycle, and it'll just be a death spiral. However, and by the way, with HBAR and other projects that have utility, XRP, same will be true. People will be selling XRP because they need to pay their rent, they need to buy food, whatever it might be. But the difference with projects that have utility is companies like Atoma.io. Atoma.io aren't buying HBAR because they think that somebody else is going to buy it off them from a greater price in the future. They're buying it because they need it to facilitate their business.
Sure.
So regardless of what the economy is doing, they still have to operate their business. And in order to do that, they still have to hold this token. And that is why the projects with real world utility are going to come out the other side even stronger, because there's going to be less competition. And that's, to me, why utility is so important.
Totally agree. And I think a lot of that comes down to looking at not necessarily the unit of account based asset, but how can we leverage the network? And do we have a real business model to leverage the network? And then as a byproduct, yes, we need the asset, but it's about what we're actually building from a business model standpoint. It's been a pleasure, Max. And is there anything that you kind of want to say to kind of lead us out?
No, just thank you very much for the opportunity. It was good to see you. Interestingly, we met because I bought one of your daughter's pieces, didn't I?
That was the only one that we've ever minted, and she keeps asking me to do more artwork.
Really? Yeah. There we go.
100%.
So she might be your first client.
She might be.
Yeah. Thank you ever so much for the opportunity. It's fantastic. So mintcondition.com. We're going to be onboarding the creators that we're lucky enough to be working with today. Actually, we're going to be doing that live later this afternoon, and then we're going live to the public in a couple of weeks. And so just look out for that, because I think it really will be. Hedera is very, very good at enterprise grade stuff, but not so fantastic at the consumer retail end kind of stuff. And I think that's really important for the price of HBAR, for adoption at a grassroots level. And I think mintcondition.com is going to bridge Web 2, the mass crowds that some of our clients have, the customer bases that they have, which are in the millions and sometimes tens of millions, and bring them into the ecosystem. So I'd really appreciate everyone's support to help us bring these people on board.
100%. Well, from Genfinity, Max Walker-Williams, head of Mint Condition. The guy's a legendary researcher as well, so give him a follow. Check out mintcondition.com. And thank you, guys. Thanks, Max.
Cheers.